Lindsay, hello, Lindsay. I see Lindsay. Ken, you're here. Jane, Joe, and James. Okay. Um, so yeah, I am sorry that last week I messed up and didn't come. Sorry about that. And then I remembered that I had to come today, and then I remembered today at 5 o'clock that we were doing this, so I sent out a reminder. So, did anyone get the reminder?
I got it.
All right, then I sent it to the right email address because there's two of them that come up, and I can never remember which one I choose. But I think I'm getting it right. So yeah, we can take this in however you'd like to approach it. I had a sort of a generalized topic about data collection and product design, and some of that's going to be more relevant to some than others. Hey Dan, how you doing? And so I can, or if you guys have, there's still people coming. Who is that?
Catherine.
Oh, hey, Catherine.
Hello, everybody.
There you are.
Hi there.
There you are, stamped. Oh, that's pretty funny. Now you're 1, 2, 3, 4. We need one more person, and we'll have the full Brady Bunch. Does everybody have this in the Brady Bunch?
Yeah, James is in the center. I've
got Catherine in the middle. It's perfect. Anyway, you got more. Who am I? I don't know who was like in the middle top row. I can't remember. Anyway, so we can take this however you guys would like to proceed. One approach would be to do a round robin and kind of talk about your data collection and analysis ideas, what you're going to do, or if you're building something, where you are in the design process. And that way you can kind of walk around, and we can just walk around the room and everybody can take 5 minutes and say, this is kind of where I'm at, and this is that would be one approach. But if others have other specific things that they'd like to accomplish, that would be fine too. So we start at the top, right, in the upper left. On my screen, that becomes Jane. And Jane, you can just pick the next person who's on the upper left. So you're up if you'd like to go first, or you can just say pass if you want to pass the baton.
Okay. Well, where I am right now is that I have sent in and written the...
You might start by just doing the 15-second reminder.
Okay.
Because it's possible that someone forgot your topic.
Right. Okay, so my topic is a mobile app that helps high school or undergraduate students pick a major for college. And the idea is that the mobile app will show show 3 choices that the student picks from a list in the format of a triangle. And then along the sides of the triangle, it'll show related majors to the ones that they picked. And it does that through some weighting of the data to show, each side of the triangle has 2 points, right? And so the relationship between those 2 points is what it'll display, different major fields. That's the theory, right? So I did the literature review so far and the proposal. And in the hand-in of that, I also started to try to show Steve a little bit about the design so that I could get some feedback on that. Where I am right now is I'm working on the logic for how the major data will display on the triangle, and working on a number of combinations and with lists, and trying to see if I can get a tool that will generate combinations of 3 majors in a long list. It comes out to be about 1 million combinations, believe it or not, of 200 majors in 3 lists without any doubles. So I'm trying to find a tool online that will make that combination list just so I can have something to work with for the description of the project. I also have started using a wireframing tool called Pixidin. And that's kind of where I'm at right now because I want to
Cool.
to mock up kind of what I've done.
Cool. So what do you think are the, so that kind of tells us where you are. What do you think is the biggest challenge you have sort of in this collection, data collection analysis?
Yeah, so the challenge that I'm having is I'm not sure what the expectation is for how to show something and explain it. What's kind of considered done versus when you're proposing a design.
So
how do you know when to stop?
Yeah, exactly. I know. What's your proposal say your project will be? That's where you define when to stop is in your proposal.
Yeah.
Big stop sign there.
Yeah.
You will do X. So.
Yeah. So I think I'm still on track with that, but I guess when you get a chance to read through everything, you can let me know. I might be getting too far.
Well, we talked about it last time, and one of the ideas was whether you're going to do the data or just simulate it.
Yeah.
And so you still seem like and my thinking there, and I don't know, Catherine, maybe you've got an idea too, but simulation would be perfectly fine.
Okay.
You could have 20 values real. You don't have to do 2 million. Even if you did 1%, that would be fine, or 1/10 of 1% of the possible combination,
Okay.
But Lindsay could probably write a piece of code in about 15 minutes that would do exactly that. Right? Is that a simple math problem that you can run in a spreadsheet? Weighting three different, each of 200 majors on 3 different attributes with a scale of 0 to 100, and then when somebody picks it, position it on a triangle.
Yeah, that'd be a good Excel project.
Yeah. So it's like if you want to learn to do that, like if you want to learn math, do that. But if you want to learn design and app stuff, then don't. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't spend my time doing, unless you want to be I don't know. I would probably spend my time writing the code, but I'm kind of nerdy about that. It's like, so and then I wouldn't care what the thing looks like.
Yeah, I care what it looks like. So that's the part I really want to focus on. I just was trying to see if there was a quick way to make the combos. If it's not quick, then I'm not going to go there, and I'll do a simulation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. I don't think there's going to be an off-the-shelf tool.
Okay.
And I had that same sense too, that you're just wanting to try it out and check and see if it might work. And
exactly.
For that, you don't want to spend a lot of time on things that won't get you there.
Right.
I got a question for you. Do you use the Adobe software at all?
What are you thinking?
They have really good tools. You can wireframe and it'll simulate everything on different size screens. That's what I use for all my wireframe in the Adobe system.
Yeah, Adobe XD.
Yep. And it'll kind of simulate what you're trying to do.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll check it out.
So you just, and then when you build something in that, James, you just deliver it as an Adobe XD deliverable, right? Basically.
You can put it in different formats.
Yes. Okay. That would be cool.
Okay. Thanks. I'll check it out.
Okay. And then think also, I mean, if you could get there, that would be really good. But you can also, if you want to remain at a conceptual level, your deliverable can range. It can be a series of, it could be slides, that simulate the motion.
Okay.
That would be perfectly fine. I mean, I'm not a graphic designer, and I've made things in like PowerPoint that look like they're little apps just because I know how to draw in PowerPoint. And it's stupid and it's like not efficient. But it gets, it's like if that's a tool. So if you want to learn tools, then make part of your thesis learning the tools.
Okay.
But if you're trying to express your thoughts, then you can use the tools and so you can go either direction.
Okay.
The design can be visually appealing. It can just be anywhere along that scale that you'd like to be. And
Okay.
yeah, and I'm in for, anything, whatever I think is best matches what you want to accomplish.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. So whoever's in the top left is next.
So I don't see it let me just see it in this format, I guess.
Okay.
All right, Lindsay, that's you.
Cool. So I am building a calculus textbook inside the TiddlyWiki platform, and the content I'm taking from an existing calculus OER. So where I'm at right now is I'm currently kind of playing with the content source that I chose to see kind of
Can you show us what it looks like?
the content in TiddlyWiki or before?
The LaTeX code, the LaTeX code. Is that what
Yeah.
you're working in now? Yeah, because I would think that most people have no idea what you're talking about.
Sure. Let me get it open.
So LaTeX is one of the weirdest things. First of all, it's spelled strangely and nobody agrees on how to pronounce it. And when you run Google searches on it, it can be problematic. But
That is very true. Actually, this is partially modified. Let me get a different.
that's all right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is LaTeX, and one of the tricky things with this is it's really good for writing formulas, anything like math and science, but when you want to, do formatting with text, you have to add all these special tags to it, whereas my plan for in TiddlyWiki is all the text formatting is really simple, and you only need the special codes for the actual math, which is hopefully going to limit the amount of work needed.
Can you highlight? Oh, so what are you like manually inserting those dollar signs?
This is how it came.
That's how it came.
So
okay.
what I've been,
right?
yeah, COTEC requires $2 signs. So I've been I do a search and replace on that.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things I run it through Notepad++ on search and replace, and then it's mostly good to go once I drop it into TiddlyWiki.
Okay, yeah. So you're doing I think of that as hand coding, right? So you kind of massage it as it comes in, and then when you mess up and you have to start over, you have to re-massage it and remember all those steps.
Yeah, I've been writing them down so that if I have time, I might write a little
write scripts to do
it.
Yeah,
a little script, yeah. But it's been so quick that.
Yeah. Because you can do that command line stuff almost, right?
Yeah. So if I get enough of this replaces this and this replaces that, then it'll probably be worth to just write one script.
Yeah. So then this goes to where?
Then I'm just basically copying, pasting this whole chapter into here, into TiddlyWiki, and into one giant tiddler, and then I've been taking it out in pieces.
Using the excision tool.
Yep.
Okay. Phew. Although that's problematic. But so you don't do the text slicer.
The more and more I looked at it, because it all relies on HTML tags. So in order to slice it up into individual pieces, you have to have headings, paragraphs, all that stuff, and I don't have any of that here.
But oh really?
Yeah, it wouldn't when I would slice it, even when I changed.
Well, what do you have? Don't you have chapter and stuff? Anyway, so these are your challenges. So yeah.
Yeah.
What I was thinking you might be able to do is you could convert. You've got chapter and section.
Yeah, it doesn't read that. It looks specifically for the HTML tag.
Right. So just change it here, or export it to HTML and match the HTML tags. Because what that will do is that will do all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, but anything I found to convert this to HTML also messes with the COTEC or the LaTeX and turns it into MathMole or something like that, which isn't what we want. And so every way I could find to use text slicer caused me more work, I think.
What happens to that section tag when you just copy paste it?
Nothing. It just stays just like that.
Yeah, you could make that a wiki tag. You could make that a tag that you work with.
Yeah, so I've been kind of just playing with this one chapter by hand to determine the structure. So all of these, this is a subsection of.
Yeah, so you're just kind of feeding your way through the whole document. So what's interesting is that it's like developing an architecture, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And those are beautiful equations, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, the one sticking point I'm trying to do is I want to have like these examples are in their own tiddlers, and I want to have them have a different style so they stand out when you're looking at the whole document. But when I apply a CSS class to the actual tiddler, that class doesn't come over when you transclude it. So all the CSS goes away.
Because the way you're transcluding?
Possibly.
Yeah, so if you go, so you're transcluding in the simple way, and if you transclude more manually, using the transclude command. So if you start, so what you're doing is using the braces, and you want to do angle bracket $ transclude.
Okay.
And then
I'll try that.
Yeah, and then and you just have, yeah, you can definitely get it, and you might have to call the CSS in a macro or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So have you interacted with the community at all, in TiddlyWiki community?
Yeah, a little bit. I asked for a couple different ideas on the math stuff and showing graphs, and some people passed on some ideas. So yeah, usually when a question comes up, I'll skim the posts to see if I find it answered, and then I'll throw it in there.
Great, cool. And so so you're going to run CSS as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, and this is actually running in Node.js on my computer.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, and it's actually really neat. Have you seen it structured before?
Show us. James, have you seen Node.js run?
A little bit.
Yeah.
So it breaks every single tiddler into these individual files. It's really neat.
Every tiddler's in its own file, and then the other you can, so you can write scripts to call in certain clusters of files. So it's basically becomes a way to run a website. Yeah,
it's actually been really nice when I've played with different things and needed to delete a bunch of tiddlers. I can just go in here and delete the files.
Yeah, that does work. Yeah. So, yeah, I should show you I should share my Node.js setup too, because it's interesting. So yeah, that's great. Thanks. And I think that's coming along really nicely.
Yeah, it's good. It's pretty smooth. Even though there's manual work, it's really not that much. I've got a good pace going. So
I think it's in the manual work that the learning occurs.
Yeah.
And then when you can systematize it, then it's like, then it's sort of done. But that's when you're really learning like the design.
Yeah, and when I run into things, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I spend some time researching that and figure that out. Yeah.
So that's sort of, and that's why I don't know. I think I can't remember who's taken that class that I teach, 575, where it's a challenge to get to think this way, but it does get there. It's different, it's different, just different form of information design and application. So
yeah,
I've resisted suggesting to Jane that she do her thesis in TiddlyWiki, because I could do those 200 majors, by the way. They'd each be a tiddler. They'd have 3 different values, and I could write a little script to call them, but no. Yeah, thanks.
I'll just remind you, you told me that I don't make my living by programming, right?
I don't either. That's why I can program. If I had to make my living programming, I'd have to get a new job.
Yeah.
But I find it kind of fun, and it's like, I don't know, I think maybe it belongs in the maker space. It's kind of like a maker thing. So writing code is not that dissimilar than I think making other things for some people. And in some ways it's like people would build models or, any other kinds of stamps, whatever sort of odd little hobbies, but programming fits the same kind of mold sometimes, like if you play with it. So
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so who's in your upper left?
Jane is, so let me go down to James.
Okay, so I've been working on Podcasts in a Box, helping educators develop videos that students actually want to watch. For a little bit, I came off the track. Steve helped me get back on the track.
Watch this?
Well, with all the research I've been doing, bringing up all the articles that other people have been doing, that if you don't have proper structure of the videos, if you don't have them edited right, students are going to look at them for a couple of seconds like, oh, I don't care, I'm just going to leave.
Can you play one of the podcasts we made in your podcast studio in a box?
Right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me find it.
Yeah. So while James is looking, because I know it's hard to do both, but this was I don't know what to call it exactly. This was an installation in the video studio at SUNY Poly. Catherine, you can use this. And it was it was a low-cost innovation that involved spending less than $1,000 to buy some stuff and put a graduate student there and to interact with Michelle Tucker, who's an IDT grad, and kind of give her some background and some more tools to use her TV studio to record podcasts. And then last year for 507, Ryan and I went to the studio every whatever it was for an hour and recorded a podcast, and James produced it. So we had a switcher and a producer kind of thing, and it was in a studio, so we treated it rather differently. But it was an interesting, so it's like using existing resources, trying to engage a staff member in a different mode of delivery of services at a university, and spending a little bit of money.
Well, we have to start out with the first thing. First thing I got from Steve was, I want to do this, go down to the studio and find out how to do it. So I went down to the studio and found out with the technology they had in the studio, I think it's like pre-1980 or something, that it couldn't be done. So my task was to create a system, and I showed Steve what I was doing in my studio, and we implemented that into the SUNY studio. Okay, I have a video.
Look at stars.
The end. It's almost May. It is almost May. You're almost done. Yeah. It's, I mean, we've come a long way historically, you know, content-wise, theoretically.
You're not going to kill the audio. You can kill the
end.
audio.
Right. Although this is not the end. No. We've got one last thing we want to talk about with this course, and we see it as a culmination.
That's like where we share a screen.
The final.
There, yeah.
Is you've produced over the last couple of months works.
Yeah. So can you stop it there? And explain this innovation?
Say that again. I couldn't hear you over the volume.
Yeah, so explain what you're doing here and what the innovation is.
Okay, what I'm doing here is running a software program called OBS. It was originally designed for video gamers so they can record themselves playing video games and broadcast it live over the internet. I took that system, ended up hooking up 2 cameras, a microphone, a laptop, and piping in another feed from the internet from over in England, all into one system. And I'm switching back and forth on the computer. A few years ago, that would have required a huge studio setup with multiple people running the soundboard, running the video switching, and running the cameras. This system allows one person to control everything. I can zoom in and out right from the board, switch camera angles, and all that fun stuff, add titles in there, add news stickers.
And most of the time, James, if I remember correctly, you recorded these and posted.
Yes, I recorded those and posted. The only ones?
Almost no post-production.
No post-production at all except for dragging them to YouTube.
Right.
Now,
so
for Gretchen's class, we broadcasted live over YouTube with her students. And so those were actually stored on YouTube at the same time. So there's no post-production at all.
Right. I forgot about that that's your second case study. We have to include that in your thesis.
Yep. That's in there, how we can live broadcast.
Yeah. Okay, good. So, well, thank you for showing. I mean, that's, by the way, I think this is really cool. It's like, and I hope it's an innovation that we can get to stick.
Are you doing all of the switching and everything within OBS, or is there another switching system you're using?
Running OBS using the hotkeys.
Okay, yeah.
I
use OBS for I use OBS for live streaming events on my campus, and I've never had the opportunity to do it with more than 2 inputs, so that looks pretty sweet.
The only issues that if you use more than one input, you got to have a separate USB bus for each and every single device.
Yeah, I found that I was able to use a Blackmagic shuttle Thunderbolt and then a USB input, and that split the buses issue enough that we were able to do that.
The
Nice.
full IDT Geek Heaven podcast. But no, what I like about the stuff that James is doing is bringing like a different dimension to information design and technology, or coming at it from a really different perspective, you know. So, but then still focusing in on the sort of at some level on the institutional aspects, like how do you bring this kind of an innovation to an institution? How do you actually do it?
So what I want to see is when James done with this. Right now, he has one person that can control the system doing the switching and the inputting. What I would love to see is once you've perfected that, some sort of touch panel device, you know, an iPad or something set up with a graphical interface that was easy enough so that the individuals doing the recording could touch the buttons and intuitively switch themselves. Right now, having somebody on hand to act as that one-person studio, you know, as you mentioned, this was a multi-person production years ago, but with static cameras now, that additional step, once you've mastered this, I'd love to see somebody in the future do a project where they do some sort of interface so that we could eliminate even you, James, and just have, you know, Steve and Ryan able to easily and intuitively do the switching.
Actually, I'm not sure I agree with that, and I think that's an interesting aspect of James's project here. I'm not sure we really want to eliminate that person.
Well, only for one reason. When Steve and Ryan's there, they don't know when to switch. I know as the producer when to make those switches without them even knowing. Where if they have to sit there and think about it when you're going, okay, it's time to switch, there's going to be a pause where they have to switch, and people are going to be like, oh, I don't want to pay attention no more. Too much pausing.
I find it difficult as a faculty member to be both producer and teacher.
Yeah, I know we see the same issue, but I also see the same issue with the other issue of getting interest to gather the components together. Yep. Oh, this is going to require another person in the room to do this. This is already beyond. I spent 6 months compelling a professor to even try to use our one-button studio that I installed for him. And after 6 months, I was finally able to get him to go in there and use it. And now he's chastising me for, jokingly, for not making it sound easy enough. And I have to keep telling him, Doug, I told you for 6 months, it's one button. But, you know, in the time since he's been using it since May, he's produced 700 videos. And now he's kind of like singing the praises of the one button and selling it to other students, or faculty, rather.
Yeah, no, I mean, for that, no doubt about that. But for the institutionally, an interesting aspect of this was to try to make our video studio relevant to the campus. And so I think that's an important institutional goal. And this was to create the sense of going to a different place to teach.
This is not that portable. Is this not the portable system we were talking about before?
Yeah, it could be, yes. But in our it could be portable, but it's not. It was designed sort of with, you know, because it takes advantage of lighting and audio in its studio.
Right.
So it's designed to be sort of located in the studio, which is a totally different model.
Yep.
Than the faculty in the office. So, and I think that's an underlooked model of how you might get faculty to produce videos, to put them in a studio. So, but it was fun. It's so great. Yeah. So, well, thanks, James.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Who's on your top left?
Don't
think anyone who's left. It's really, it's fine.
Go with Kenneth.
There you go. Ken, how you doing?
Good. Let's see if I can turn my video on here for a bit. Ignore my ridiculously large headset.
I like the angle too. Yeah, you're building something, right?
Yeah, building something, writing about something. So what I've been doing is looking into the viability of Microsoft SharePoint as an educational platform, while also building out, beginning to build out um, an online version of a training that we've been delivering in person up until this point, so we can reach a broader audience. So where I'm at right now is I did a big chunk of my literature review looking at constructivist learning theory. And now what I'm doing is I'm going through SharePoint and establishing key points of SharePoint that fulfill some of the needs of both constructivist theory and some of the needs that we have just by nature of our audience. We have a
How are you doing?
rather diverse audience of adult learners.
How are you doing that?
I'm using basically what I already know it can do as a developer.
I meant
So I'm looking at
more technically. How are you building those associations and tracking those associations of like aspects or components or locations in SharePoint with constructivist learning theory? Like, how are you making those connections?
So I'm doing is I'm looking at the like the key aspect of constructivism. For
Right.
instance, reflection.
How are you keeping track of your data?
I really don't have any data.
That is your data.
Oh, okay.
That's your data, but how are you keeping track of it?
I've sort of just been like chronicling it in a TiddlyWiki for now. Like
Okay.
my process of going through and looking at, you know, what are the key aspects of reflection and what are the key features of SharePoint that help facilitate that and give the instructor means of both prompting reflection and also for the students to engage in both self-reflection and group reflection on different aspects of the learning process.
Okay, that's yeah. So why'd you choose TiddlyWiki?
It's fun.
You just want to make me be happy right now. Besides being happy, yeah. No. Can you share? I mean, is that something that you've shared with others, that wiki, or is it?
I haven't put it up anywhere yet. It's just local on my
it's like raw data now, right?
Yeah. Yep. Cool. But yeah, I like TiddlyWiki just as a means of helping, like, sort of keep track of my own thoughts and just put information somewhere where I know I can go and get it and find it and then start to make connections either there in TiddlyWiki or in my
that's perfect. So that's what I was trying. So you hit the data collection and analysis, right? Because that's the sort of it's hard to gather data.
It is, yeah. And I mean, a lot of what I'm doing right now, I haven't found any really like published instances of SharePoint being used as an educational platform. So I'm kind of just working from like my experience and what I know it can do and some of the needs and that I have both as an instructor from the aspect of trying to administrate something like this on a large scale, and also the needs that I know our audience is going to have as well.
Cool. Yeah. So I hope that your Tiddlers emerge as something that were like I don't know, maybe you'd label them insights or connections or something, right? So each Tiddler becomes an insight or a connection, and then you can begin to add a set of tags maybe associated with SharePoint, a tag associated with constructivist theory.
Yep. And
then in the tagging, out of that will emerge your thesis.
Yeah.
So the wiki itself can become the thesis, and that's a mode of knowledge collection and production.
One of the things that I like about that too is the TiddlyWiki at the end of all of this. It's something that I know I can then take and provide as a resource for both students and instructors. So that way they can go through that, and if they have any questions, it basically becomes a repository of information and knowledge and research that I've done to get to the point where I'm done.
Do you ever operate at the command line?
A little bit here and there.
That's enough. As Lindsay, I don't know if you were here when Lindsay was sharing she's working in TiddlyWiki and she's running it at the Node.js level.
Yep.
Which is surprisingly semi-trivial if you've been in a command line. It takes a little while getting used to it, but once you got it, it's like fine. It's
Yep.
you're on the command line. Control P is your previous command. So I hit Control P, and it's your two previous commands, and it's basically all there is to it. But what that would do is allow you to build out a TiddlyWiki over time, a little bit more structure than the single file mode, and then you could split parts of it off to certain audiences and others to other audiences. So then your thesis itself can contain your raw notes, but you can also generate out of that certain content that you can deliver to just a segmented audience based on how they come in.
Yeah. Yep.
But single file mode works really well for a long time.
Yeah.
And think of multiple wikis, fine too. Yeah, and there's all sorts of different tagging, and then make sure that you back the stuff up, because the thing, it's like
A little unstable here and there.
I don't lose very. Yeah, are you running just like on your desk, like version, so it's not on the web? Yeah, I use Tiddly Spot. Tiddly Spot's a little flaky from time to time, but it's nice on the web.
Yeah. Okay.
And, yeah, and then I tried. Yeah, but if you don't have to serve it, you don't have any problems at all. So if it's just for you, you put it in your Google Drive basically and download it wherever you are.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that sounds like a really cool. Yeah, you'll like that. When you get to the TiddlyWiki, you can do colors.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that you want to do something with art. So.
Yeah, I like the process of like organizing it and just having it make sense. And like you said, like the coding aspect, like for me, I feel the same way. Like writing HTML and CSS falls into that maker category. I get the same feeling from that as I do like working with wood or drawing something or painting. It's that same kind of feeling during the process and satisfaction at the end for me.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to see. And then if you can, and I think TiddlyWiki begins to broach into that and bring some of that satisfaction to writing, which is really unusual.
Yeah,
might be way off the deep end at that point. So, yeah. Well, thanks.
Yep.
We've got Joe and Dan. Yeah, you choose, Ken.
Let's see here. Well, if I stick to the left, it'll be Joe.
There you go, Joe.
Okay. I've actually already started collecting data. I've created a 0 to 5 point Likert scale based on the Mayer's 12.
Remind us what you're doing.
Yeah, so this started out as an interest in viewing the efficiency of video within higher education in reference to the cognitive load theory, which kind of spun into the cognitive load theory and media theory, and Mayer's 12 principles of good multimedia design. And so from that, I've created a 0 to 6 point Likert scale for the 12 principles, and I've been going through a collection of a variety of videos from Geneseo, ones that I could get my permission to use as part of this project, and trying to represent a wider base of different types of video, student-made projects, just-in-time instructions, parts of some pre-training materials, some even videos that isn't strictly speaking educational, but part of this whole educational environment. And so I've been painstakingly watching these videos, going through them and breaking down time code and putting notes as to how they apply to the various principles where relevant. And like the 11 videos that I've watched so far and analyzed have generated, I don't know, probably about 40 pages of appendices. I really kind of underestimated at the beginning how much was involved here, because initially my idea was that I would do this sort of analysis and then generate some sort of online manual for effective video creation. Steve wisely talked me out of the second half of that, and I'm glad that he did, because if I analyze the 20 videos that I'm hoping to get through, I will have already expended my cognitive resources.
How much time are you spending per video?
As much as it takes. For instance, the longest video that I've analyzed is 1 hour and 10 minutes, and that took about 3 hours to get through, making notes and analyzing and whatnot. The shortest video I've analyzed so far is about 2 minutes, and that still took about half an hour. And then, the 18-minute training video that I went through, which was multi-segmented, that was a couple hours there. I'm trying to be thorough in the application of this rubric. It's actually not unenjoyable. It's just tedious.
So how's your rubric?
Originally, and that was another part where I was going to make a 0 to 6 point Likert scale for each of the 12, but I've made it generic enough that I can apply it to each of the 12 principles. If you were to look at the proposal that I submitted, it's on page 11, if you wanted to look at it.
No, well, I was asking what you think of your rubric after using it for 11. How's it working?
Oh, I'm finding that there's, depending on the type of video, not all of the 12 media principles are necessarily directly applicable. So I'm not finding a problem so much with the rubric, but I'm getting a few more not applicable, fields filled in that I would have initially liked. There's just some points where, depending on the type of video, maybe multimedia, the base multimedia principle, for instance, doesn't apply, or perhaps the spatial contiguity principle isn't necessarily applicable to what's being done. Maybe it's not part of a pre-training system series, so that doesn't become applicable. So here and there, I'm finding between 1 and 3 of the 12 principles isn't necessarily applicable to each of the videos.
Well, but that's what. Do you think you're missing anything from your? Are you throwing any data away? Do you think by using your rubric, are you missing things? Like, or you seem to be saying you're taking a set of notes.
Oh yeah, I'm taking notes for each of the. Actually, with Catherine here.
What do you do with the notes?
Well, so the notes are broken down into each of the principles with the 0 to 5 rating associated with each of the principles, as well as notes that led me to get to that rating. There's a general portion of notes, and then I've got basically a time code breakdown where I make notes referencing each. It's not too dissimilar to some of what Catherine was teaching in the qualitative the qualitative research class that I took with her. The difference is, instead of doing an observation of a live area, I'm applying the observation to pre-recorded videos.
Right. What are you going to do with your notes?
The notes are going to help me with the analyzation of the numbers. I'm going to crunch the numbers down to determine, try to come up with an idea as to whether or not this is we're effectively applying video. And in the breakdown of that analysis, I'm going to refer to the notes to bring that all back together.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that sounds. Yeah. I mean, and you've probably talked this all through with Russ, right?
No, I haven't had any. The last 6 weeks, the emails between Russ, yourself, and Ryan, I haven't gotten anybody to respond, so I'm just doing it on my own.
Huh. Okay. Well, yeah, you should let me know about that, because you identified Russ as your reader.
I've sent him my initial email contact. I didn't hear from him. Didn't hear back from him there. And then during the one time that I have spoken to him, which was during our proposal discussion, I shared with him all of the material I had up till that point via Google Drive, and I've heard nothing from him since. So I've been working with a PhD here on my campus to help me put together the the project. Actually, an individual is helping put together some Python code to actually crunch the numbers for me when I'm done.
So, okay. I'm confused about I'm happy to, I've not been paying attention to it because I figured you were talking to Russ, which is perfectly fine.
Now, in fairness, I've only made two attempts to reach out to him.
Here nor there. So maybe you can help me. So what are you going to do with I'm just confused. You seem to have very fine-grained ethnographic level data, perhaps, that you might have a set of notes that would be codable, and you could develop themes from those notes, and you seem to have a set of Likert scales, and I can't quite figure out like what you would do with Python code to process Likert scale data.
The issue was, in any issue where I have a not applicable field, the Python code there was going to help eliminate that from the averaging of the numbers so that it didn't throw the data off wildly.
Okay, yeah, you can do that in Excel. But
yeah, I was going to do it in Excel, but the advisor that I've been working with here at Geneseo basically told me to step it into the next century and do something else. And he says, yeah, it'll take me 15 minutes to throw that together for you, Joe, so I'll just do that. All right. The tool itself, I don't care. I mean, if I'm only looking at 20 videos with between 9 and 12 numeric factors each, I could do that in Excel myself. And I had planned on doing it, but yeah, Dr. Ann had other ideas.
So like if you get a score, and so I guess I'm just confused, like how you're going to bring the two of them together. But I'll reread the proposal. Maybe it's in there.
Yeah, there's some of it in there. I mean,
I just don't see the data like piece.
We discussed this during my proposal,
right?
I'm based on your suggestion. I was going through and analyzing the video to determine efficacy, and as I put in the proposal, which I submitted a while ago, I'm doing an analysis of the video to help determine that efficacy.
Right.
I'm getting a numeric basis off of that.
Yep.
And then determining whether or not how those numbers are coming out, whether they're being skewed one way or the other. I'm going to, in the analysis, point out, for instance, personalization and use of voice principles. Two simple principles are both coming out so far fairly high in many of the videos, which will help skew upwards the number. So if the videos do appear to be overly effective, which I don't think they are, because just rough guesstimates at the numbers I've got so far aren't pointing that direction. It might be because they're making use of these two relatively simple principles as opposed to appropriately using modality or spatial contiguity or temporal contiguity or some of the other principles.
But okay, so I'll look at that again, because I think that you could solve that problem by weighting your different dimensions.
Okay.
You could do that from theory. What I'm worried about is you're getting into a cycle where your data is shaping your analysis, which is shaping your data, which is shaping your analysis. So,
well, I haven't done any analysis yet.
Well, but your method of data collection is pointing you. I'm afraid that you're going to end up developing a data set that you won't be able to. That's not going to exactly tell you what you want, what you think it will.
Okay.
And
I could definitely use some help with that.
Yeah, I'm concerned that you're spending like as much as I think 15x on a video to do analysis and gathering a maybe a really rich source of data that you don't have a sense of what you're going to do with it. So, so usually you think about your data collection and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do with my data when I get it. I'm going to, unless, I don't know, Catherine, maybe I'm just missing something here. Maybe this is closer to your kind of way of approaching the world? It's like he's mixing two things, and I'm trying to figure out how they're going to go together.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same kind of discomfort about it, just because when you were talking about writing the notes, I think one could do a study taking notes on videos and looking at them that way. But you said that you were taking the notes in order to crunch some numbers. And I kind of think because you came up with this rubric, that in itself is really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's enough. Like, the notes might be just a sentence or two saying this one was really wild because it had a celebrity in it, or, something that's like really striking about it that doesn't fit. But otherwise, like, your rubric's kind of got it covered, I think.
I mean, unless you really want to do that thematic level analysis of the notes, it seems you're welcome to collect it, but it just seems like it's taking you an enormous amount of time and creating stress in your project, and it's not going to add anything to your understanding.
Okay.
I mean, unless you're going to analyze that data, like to sort of cherry pick it. What I'm worried about is you're going to begin to cherry pick the data to support your numbers.
Well,
But
so
the numbers should stand on their own.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I had hoped to, break down the numbers by category, and then do an overall average, and hopefully have the data to be able to address how I think we got to each of those numbers based on the notes that I've collected. I'm not going to be able to do that from memory, so notes are going to be a necessity, and I'm certainly not going to watch 3 hour 10 hours worth of video over again to go rewrite the analysis on the back end. So that the notes seem like they're going to be a fairly necessary component. I mean, any sort of meaningful analysis of the numbers when I'm done seems like it's going to need some sort of reminder as to how I got there.
I think the rubric itself should do that.
Okay. Well, Steve, it's on page 11 of the proposal. You're welcome to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'll look at I'll look at the data analysis model that you're suggesting in there too, because the notion of averaging across 12 dimensions.
I don't really get into much of the data analysis in the proposal because at the time I wasn't sure how it was all coming together. I had just had the data collection idea in mind at that time.
Yeah.
Now that I'm actually doing the work here, actually, boots on the ground, working on the project or the data collection, I'm seeing how both my proposal and my lit review could be reshaped and made better, which is something I hope to revisit.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't particularly happy with either of them, but without actually having worked on the project, gotten into the trenches and doing any of the work, I wasn't sure where I was going to be going.
Well, that's always the nature of it. I mean, that's just, yeah. So, okay, I will take a look at that. We should probably set up a time at the end, and then we should probably let Dan get his fix. He's been, sorry, Dan, but how you doing?
Hey, guys, no problem. I guess that's why we're here in the first place, right? Sort it out.
Yeah, no, how's it going?
No, it's pretty good. So as a reminder, I'm working on a e-commerce environment development for a mid-sized medical device company. And the last time, we all got together, there was some discussion about whether or not I should use the actual name of the company that I work at. And we kind of decided that it was a good idea if I didn't, because ultimately it won't really affect my output. It'll just be the name and the branding, the look and feel of the whole thing. So I decided to just switch it to a generic name, and I'm now calling it MedDev Company. And I'm creating a logo and a brief brand guideline for that to go on with it. So I won't be using my company's brand guidelines or logo. I'll be using one that I created myself.
Okay, good.
So where I stand right now is I'm working on creating a consultants report that we talked about, Steve. It's going to consult. The reason I'm going with a consultants report in this instance, instead of creating an actual functioning e-commerce site as a model is because that's actually one of the biggest barriers to this project would be creating an actual e-commerce site for a real company with their products on it. It would be a legal concern, regulatory concern that you wouldn't want to have that out there anywhere on the internet, even if it was just a mock-up and it wasn't real. So trying to steer clear of that, I'm just going to go with imagining this as though I were a marketing firm doing research to convince a med dev company that they need to get into the e-commerce space. So to do this, some of the things I've been working on is creating an analysis to kind of decide which products that a med dev company sells are actually appropriate for online sale through the e-commerce portal. So I have a scale with about 4 or 5 different attributes to analyze. And then I also, for the sake of the consultant report, am ranking a few of the company's closest competitors. And I'm using that. That's a little more of a subjective approach. And that's also one of the other challenges that I'm having is that you can't actually access the competitors' e-commerce sites unless you're an actual customer. And I do not own a hospital, so I can't become a customer. But I have been pretty lucky actually about finding like tutorials online that those companies put out for their customers as PDFs or some other document that you can access online and get kind of an insider look at how they have it laid out through examples. So it's been pretty helpful.
The field that you're engaged in is called competitive intelligence.
Yeah.
You're gathering competitive intelligence.
Yeah, I felt like it was something I probably wasn't supposed to see, but hey, it's out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I have that. And I've also
there are terms of use and you should follow the terms of use in the sites that you visit.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're producing a public academic document with your name on it. Mm-hmm. So there are terms of use and there are standards that we should adhere to, and if whatever. So I'm sure you're being, but it's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting ethical dilemma.
Yeah, it's out there. If I search certain key terms, it's one of the first results. But I'll double check, and maybe it actually does in fact link back to something that's on their public websites.
Yeah, no, and I do that all the time. But I under the cover of academic, you should at least read the guidelines for academic research. You have an incredibly wide latitude.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, but we should just make sure of that, especially because it's also in your field of work.
Yeah,
and that's what concerns me, is that I don't want you to engage in unethical behavior. For example, you may want to go work for one of these competitors, and you may want to show them your master's thesis, and they may not look kindly upon seeing parts of their website deep in your master's thesis. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? So just think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that input. And moving forward from there, I've started actually designing the consultant's report. So it's not just going to be, a white page PDF with black text. It has to look like it's coming from a marketing consultant that wants this company's business. So I've just kind of been playing with designs. It's a little difficult to do it in Microsoft Word. It's a little bit limiting, but it's probably one of the most straightforward and simplest ways to go about typing it all in there and exporting the PDF. But it's been good so far, but I'm just waiting to hit a roadblock. So if anyone has any other suggestions, I'm all yours before I get too deep into it for creating a well-designed PDF that I could type into and execute. And then in addition to that, I'm also doing a PowerPoint slide as though I were to present to the sales and marketing team at the company.
Do you use style sheets in Word?
No.
Yeah, so you need style sheets.
Do you
Was
know
it
how to-
the one like the predefined like templates that they?
But you start defining your own styles and creating your own paragraph types, and you'll find Word is probably completely sufficient for your needs. If you haven't explored style sheets yet, you have some ways to go before Word is, you have some exploration and learning to do in Word that I think you'd find helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I used Word for something big, but with like lots of graphics. But one thing, I don't know, James, if you're more frequent word user, the issue had to do with having like I don't know, 40 or 50 floats, and that kind of corrupted the documents. But if you're not going to have tons of inserts, you should be fine.
Do you know how
I
to
don't
use
think so.
InDesign?
What's that?
You know how to use InDesign?
I do. Yeah, I was gonna say I use mostly Adobe stuff at work for design. I am not the graphic designer at work, but I do work with the graphic designer, and I kind of do like minimal amounts of it, in her absence. So I am familiar with it. I'm not a pro, but I am able to.
InDesign?
What's
Well-
that?
Can you have live text in InDesign?
Yes.
Where do you write it? In InDesign?
Well, what you do is when I work with clients, they give me their Word documents, and I can flow them right into InDesign and manipulate them any way I want. And if they go back and change that Word document, they resend it to me. I hit a button in InDesign, and it puts in all the updates.
Do what he says.
All right, I'll check it out.
There you go. Do what James says.
I do this every day for clients.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I came to the right place then.
There's a new client. No, but that would be cool. If you know InDesign already and you can make those things happen, then absolutely do that.
All right. Yeah, I'll check it out. Thanks, James.
You're welcome.
What do? You just you go into InDesign and open a Word document, and you've got like code that's ready to interpret it.
No, it takes the Word document for you and puts it in the proper format for InDesign. It's literally drag and drop the file right in there.
Right, but then if you set styles, how do you keep the things in InDesign for the next time? You just drag it in there again?
Well, no, each InDesign file set up separately for each client. So one client's not going to have the same style as the next client.
Right.
What you can do is save the styles
Okay.
for the client and do it that way.
So you save styles. You save a style sheet. You open up, you bring a new document in, you apply a style sheet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Word used to, in Word 1 and 2, like up to, I don't know, the Word used to have separate style sheet documents that you could write and apply to different documents, and they don't. Now they're integrated, and they lost that. So what James is describing is a system where you separate your content from your design.
Yep.
Yeah. I understand what he's getting at, and
Like, it's great. If you can use that, then Word is useful for source code. If you have to format in Word, it's doable, but it's not nearly like InDesign. You can't do anything real.
No,
Yeah.
InDesign, you can do the text wrap around the pictures and everything, set up.
Yeah, exactly. Does InDesign do really nice text production?
That's all InDesign's pretty much used for is text production. InDesign's used for magazines, newspapers, where there's a lot of text.
So it does typography.
Yeah, that's what it's basically used for.
So back to Lindsay's thing. Lindsay's system, LaTeX, also does typography.
okay.
But it just does it from the command line, and it prints beautiful looking text that you can't get with Word. So you will end up with an absolutely beautiful document if you do something real like InDesign. So that would be great.
Well, what they're doing with InDesign too now is you can do your wireframes right in InDesign. It's another option for doing apps and stuff.
Can you do your slides in InDesign as well?
Yes and no. You can set up everything in InDesign. Well, InDesign, you hit a button and it'll convert it over to a Flash format where it'll make it look like the pages are turning, the slides are going. Nothing exciting.
Yeah. Right. So Dan,
James,
check that out.
Another question for you, James, since I have you. When you drag and drop that into InDesign, you can just drop it in as a block of text from Word. You don't need to design anything in Word. You just drop it in, and then it will populate within InDesign the way you tell it to.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sounds simple enough.
Cool. Excellent. So, does that, Dan? It sounds like you're making good progress and moving right along, and I like the way that this has. I like the way that it's kind of shifted a little bit, but you're still doing what you started out doing, but you've added a lot of this design stuff, and it's just a nice application of different questions wrapped up in a design question. So I really liked how your thesis and project has emerged.
Yeah, it's moving along. I was a little unsure, but I think the direction of the consultant's report, like you suggested, was a good way to go, and it gives me the opportunity to do some more design stuff, which I like doing, but I don't always get to do.
Right. Now that you're doing an InDesign, it would be really nice. So excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for anybody? Thanks, everybody.
Are cats required?
Pardon?
Are cats required? I noticed a lot of people with cats today.
I'm going to bring my goat next time.
There you go.
All right. Take it
Sounds
easy.
good. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.